Now, in these slides, I've been showing you what are essentially animations of how the diagrams change over time. But when you're writing things by hand, you're typically using a sheet of paper and you're changing stuff on the sheet of paper, and you don't want to be erasing stuff, and you kind of want the paper to show how you got to the point where you are. So here I'm going to show what it would be like to do the example we just did, but more like on paper. So let's start with the initial example here, where we have already evaluated the first expression. And I'm going to not include the grid world because it's just a distraction. And if we're at this spot, then what we've already done is we've already evaluated new test bugle, and it has now become the value test bugle 1 in object land. So we would do something like this. We would cross out new test bugle. Above it, we would write test bugle 1. And then we would say, aha, we would now make our variable in here that would now have tb1. Okay, and now we go off to evaluate our next expression, and in the next expression we look up tests, the value of tests, we cross it out, we replace it by its value as tb1, tb1 forward 3. Well, what's going to happen up in object land? In object land we're going to get a new location. Let's call that location L2. That location is going to have an x value of 4 and a y value of 1. And over here, we would indicate that it's at that new position by crossing out the old one and putting in the new. So the new position is now L2. So this is indicating the state of the test bugle position has changed from L1 to L2, and we now see the history of that in our diagram. Okay, let's continue going on. What do we have here? Well, over here, test is tb1. And now we have tb1 get position. Well, that's a new expression. So test was an expression that evaluated to tb1. Let's use a different color here, say green, to now say tb1 get position. That whole thing, what does that evaluate to? That evaluates to position L2. And now we're going to go off and create a variable called old lock. And old lock is now something that holds the value L2. Okay, so we've now completed the third assignment. Now what happens in the fourth assignment? Well, this is pretty complicated. All right, what's happening here? Well, gosh, if we really do this in order, what do we see? We see that we should be creating some new lock variable here that's initially empty. And then we're going to go off. What are we going to do? Well, we have a new location constructor invocation, but to do that, we have to evaluate this first sub-expression, the first argument, and to do that we have to evaluate OLOC. Why, what is OLOC? OLOC is L2. And gosh, what is L2.y? L2.y, if we look it up here, L2.y is 1, so we replace that by 1. And now we have that 1 plus 5, we replace that by 6. And look at all these things that we're crossing out. So we figured out that whole thing is 6. Next thing you want to do is we find OLOC again. That's the value L2. L2.x, what's that? That's 4, so that value becomes 4. Now we do 2 times 4, 2 times 4. Why, gosh, that's the value 8. And now we're going to execute new location of 6, 8. What's that going to do? That's going to create a brand new location. That location, let's call it L3, is up in object land. And now we have x value of 6 and y value of 8. And when we evaluate this whole thing, so new location of 6, 8, that now becomes L3. Whoops. That now becomes L3. So things are messy. Okay, and it's okay. So location new lock gets L3. L3 goes in here. And now there's an awful lot of work that has led to the generation of that. And now, as the very last thing, what do? We evaluate tests. Tests is tb1. And new lock we now know as L3. And what are we going to do? We're going to set test's position to L3. So we come up here in object land, and now we have L3, and that is our final diagram. So this looks very different than the final diagram that we saw in the animation. It has lots, it's a lot messier, it has a lot more crossouts, but those crossouts tell us the history of how this thing came to be. And this is how I would draw the gem for this particular example.